It was one of those evenings when the rain didn't just fall, it poured as if the sky itself was crying for someone. The cafe windows were fogged, the air smelled of freshly ground coffee, and the world outside looked blurred, lonely, and endlessly gray. Amelia Parker walked in, clutching her coat tightly around her trembling frame. Her eyes, red from the tears she had been hiding all day, reflected the weight of someone who had lost more than just her way. She wasn't looking for comfort. She was only looking for silence, a place to disappear quietly among strangers. But fate, as it often does, had a different plan. Before diving into the story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the mysterious ways life brings people together, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel Silent Hope. Your support helps us spread stories that remind the world that even broken hearts can find warmth again. Amelia spotted an empty table in the corner and hurried over, desperate to sit before her tears gave her away. She placed her coffee cup down, slipped off her coat, and sank into the chair, breathing out the exhaustion of another day spent pretending she was fine. But within seconds, a deep, calm voice broke through her haze. "I think you might be at my table." Startled, she looked up. A man sat across from her, tall, neatly dressed, with the kind of quiet presence that didn't demand attention, but somehow held it. He had kind eyes, the kind that didn't just look at you, but seemed to look through you, straight into the places you kept hidden. She stammered an apology, reaching for her bag. "I'm so sorry, I didn't see." But before she could stand, he smiled faintly and said, "It's okay. Stay. I don't mind the company." Something about his voice, steady, gentle, unassuming, made her freeze. For reasons she couldn't explain, she stayed. Maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was because for the first time in months, someone didn't push her away. They sat in silence for a long while, the sound of rain filling the space between them. The man, who she later learned was named Ethan, simply continued sipping his coffee, occasionally glancing out the window as if waiting for the right words to arrive. Amelia had been through too much that week. 2 months ago, she had lost her job at the publishing house she loved. A few weeks later, her fiancé called off their wedding through a text message. And just yesterday, she had received a letter that her mother's condition had worsened in the care home. Every part of her life seemed to be falling apart piece by piece, leaving her standing in the ruins of dreams she no longer recognized. She hadn't eaten properly in days, hadn't smiled in weeks. And yet, sitting across from this stranger, she felt a strange calm. Ethan finally broke the silence. "Rough day?" he asked, not intrusively, but softly, the way someone asks when they already know the answer. Amelia nodded faintly, looking down at her cup. You could say that. He didn't ask for details, and that alone made her want to talk. She found herself telling him things she hadn't said out loud to anyone. About losing her job, her relationship, her faith in people. She spoke in quiet fragments, as if afraid her voice would shatter if she said too much. Ethan listened without interrupting, his eyes holding the kind of empathy that couldn't be faked. When she finished, he simply said, "Sometimes life has to break you open to let the light in." The words hit her deeper than she expected. No one had told her something kind in so long that she almost didn't know how to accept it. She gave a small, shaky laugh. "That sounds like something you'd read on a quote poster." He smiled, the corner of his lips curving upward. "Maybe, but it doesn't make it less true." Hours passed like minutes. The rain outside softened, and the cafe grew quieter. They spoke about small things, books, music, travel. But underneath, there was a thread of something raw and real connecting them. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't forced. It was simply two lost souls sitting across from each other, finding warmth in the presence of someone who understood silence as much as words. When Amelia finally checked her phone, it was nearly closing time. "I should go," she said softly, standing up. But Ethan looked up at her and said something that would stay with her for a long time. "You walked to the wrong table, Amelia, or maybe the right one. Don't run from peace when you find it." For the first time in weeks, she smiled, genuinely smiled. "Thank you," she whispered before leaving. She didn't even ask for his number. It wasn't that kind of connection. It felt sacred, like something that wasn't meant to be owned, only remembered. Over the next few weeks, Amelia began to change. She started journaling again, a habit she had abandoned years ago. She applied for new jobs, smaller ones, less glamorous but honest. She began visiting her mother every weekend, reading her stories and bringing flowers. The loneliness didn't vanish overnight, but it began to soften. And every time she felt herself slipping back into sadness, she remembered that evening in the cafe. The stranger who told her to stay when all she wanted to do was run. Months passed, and Amelia got a job at a small community library. It wasn't high-paying, but she loved it. Every day, she helped children find books, recommended stories to old readers, and started a weekly book club called Silent Hope, inspired by the words that had saved her that night. One cold winter morning, the library hosted a small event for local authors. Amelia was in charge of organizing it, making sure everything ran smoothly. As she arranged the chairs, she looked up at the poster on the wall and froze. One of the guest authors was Ethan Miller, a novelist who had recently published a book titled The Table by the Window. Her heart skipped. It couldn't be him. It was too coincidental, too unreal. But when he walked through the door, same calm eyes, same warm smile, she knew it was him. Ethan's eyes widened as he saw her. "Amelia Parker," he said softly, as though her name was something sacred. She laughed nervously. "You remembered. How could I forget?" He replied with that same quiet grace. "You were the girl who sat at the wrong table." The event went beautifully. Ethan spoke about how sometimes stories find you before you write them. He shared how one rainy evening, a stranger's sadness inspired him to write about hope, connection, and healing. Amelia listened, her eyes glistening with tears, realizing that she had unknowingly become a part of someone else's story, and that story had helped her rebuild her own. After the event, Ethan handed her a signed copy of his book. Inside, he had written, "For the woman who reminded me that even lost souls can guide each other home." Amelia held the book close, unable to speak. For years, she had believed her life had no purpose, that her pain was meaningless. But standing there, she understood that sometimes our greatest heartbreaks lead us to the people and places that were meant to heal us. Weeks later, they met again, not as strangers, but as two people bound by an invisible thread of fate. They spent more time together, long walks, deep talks, quiet dinners. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was something better, something real. A friendship that slowly, gently grew into love. The kind of love that doesn't come from fireworks, but from warmth, like sunlight after a storm. Years passed, and the cafe where they had first met became their special place. On the anniversary of that rainy night, they returned there. Amelia laughed as she sat at the same corner table. "Guess I chose the wrong seat again," she teased. Ethan smiled, reaching across the table to take her hand. "No," he said softly. "You chose the one that changed everything." The rain began to fall outside again, just like that first night, steady, soft, forgiving. The world seemed quieter, gentler, as if it, too, remembered the two souls who had found each other by accident. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Hope. Every story we tell carries a reminder that one small act of kindness, one moment of listening, can change a life forever. Speech balloon special request. In the comments, write, "I believe in second chances if you too believe that even wrong turns can lead us to the right people." Because sometimes the wrong table is exactly where you were always meant to sit.